Greetings, Witchlings. I hope you have all been very well. To recap, last time we discussed the ways in which carbon exists in our environment, as well as what isotope ratios can tell us about the origin of that carbon. Now let us turn our attention to our vast and beloved oceans. We've explored so little of them, yet we're having a profound impact on them. Today we'll be focusing specifically on the way ocean pH is changing and the way that affects calcium-secreting marine organisms. But before we can understand oceanic carbon intake, we must first understand how the land contributes as a carbon sink. As much as 45% of the carbon stored on land is inhaled by our trees. But the counter to this is that they often exhale all of this back out into the atmosphere. As plant life flourishes and grows, it inhales this carbon. But whenever it dies in the winter, it exhales it back out again. As microorganisms cause the decay of this new dead organic matter, some of that carbon is released back into the atmosphere, while the rest gets locked away in the soil. We should also keep in mind that agriculture and deforestation has interfered with the soil's ability to retain this carbon, as it exposes the carbon to oxidation. Pre-industrial revolution, carbon would have been sequestered and locked away at a far higher rate than at any point thereafter. We also don't exactly know what the limit is on terrestrial carbon uptake. That's why we rely mainly on oceanic and atmospheric data. Even then, this entire cycle of carbon capture represents only about 30% of our fossil fuel emissions. As much as 45% of our emissions remain in the atmosphere, interacting with infrared radiation in ways that we've discussed previously. Finally, the remaining 25% of our emissions dissolve into the ocean. Of course, this would obviously have some impact, because this is carbon that didn't exist within the atmosphere prior to us. What exactly would that impact be, however? For starters, when CO2 intermingles with water, it results in carbonic acid. Not all CO2 results in this weak acid, however, and some remains as free molecules. The composition of seawater is roughly 90% inorganic carbon in the form of bicarbonate ions, 9% carbonate, and 1% CO2. Now, by definition, acids are anything that donates a hydrogen ion, and pH is a measure of the hydrogen ion concentration on a logarithmic scale. As hydrogen ion concentrations increase, pH deviates to a smaller number, indicating a stronger acid. Currently, our ocean has dropped from a pH of 8.2 to 8.1. This represents a 25% increase in the number of hydrogen ions. We could see the latter's concentration increase by 150%, while carbonate ion concentrations drop 50%. This would result in a pH change of 0.2 to 0.3 units more. While this may not sound like a lot, and may not seem like a big deal, it has major impacts on mollusks, corals, and even plankton. Decreasing carbonate concentrations reduces CaCO3, calcium carbonate, and interferes with CaCO3 secreting organisms. It basically decreases their rate of building their skeletons. The only way these organisms can sequester carbon is if they're alive, otherwise their skeletons dissolve back into the ocean. As the water becomes more acidic, some species of coral have been known to shed their protective skeletons completely, leaving them vulnerable to destruction in a variety of ways. This change in pH, in addition to a variety of other factors, results in coral bleaching, whereby the symbiotic relationship that these coral have with zooxanthellae, a marine algae, is severed, and the algae are expelled. Of course, if hardier zooxanthellae move in, then the coral will continue to thrive. But if none do, then it dies and releases its carbon back into the ocean. Overall, this reduces the ocean's ability to sequester carbon and results in higher concentrations of carbon dioxide within our atmosphere. In fact, there has been a measurable noted decline in the ocean's ability to sequester CO2, and we may be reaching the physical and chemical limits for our oceans. As we edge closer to this hard limit on the amount of CO2 that our oceans can uptake, we should consider where we would be without them. If the Earth had no oceans at all, we would be at nearly 500 parts per million of CO2 in the atmosphere today. Possibly more. I'll leave you to ponder what exactly a world like that would look like. Until next time, Witchlings, I hope that you stay safe because you are incredible. If you'd like to hear more of my musings, or if you'd like to see more content curated by me, I encourage you to check out my social media that are linked everywhere on my channels, and I would also recommend maybe subscribing too. Thank you so much for watching. I greatly admire your hunger for knowledge and seeking it out wherever it may be found. Bye!